So welcome everybody. This is our last session of this month's theme, which was Indigenous and urbanization history. So really looking at how did this area change from when the original peoples were here through the knowing the neighborhoods that we do today. And then also a little bit about the work that we've been doing on the Bronx River and in the parks around it. So today we have invited some special guests. One of them is a familiar face to you. Thank you very much. And then another one you might not know. So we have Stephen DeVillo. I don't actually know your last name.
That is my last name.
No, Inelda.
Oh,
Juarbe.
Juarbe?
Juarbe.
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 Okay. Inelda Juarbe. So I would like to invite them to speak a little bit about what they do, and then we have some questions. If I can get them to paste again here, I'll copy and paste them again. These are some questions that we've been asking at other career panels so that you can speak freely about yourselves and your background. And then if any of the students have any other questions about your backgrounds, I'm sure we'll have some time for them to be able to ask them. So take it away, whomever would like to go first.
I think our guests should go first. There we go.
Okay, Stephen, please take it away.
okay. I'm Stephen Paul DeVillo. You may have met me on a Bronx River ramble or things like that. And I have two jobs. I have one job that pays the rent, which is working as a grant writer, development officer. And in fact, I started at the Bronx River Alliance in this fascinating career. But my other role, and I think it's more and more pertinent to what we're talking about today, I have what you might call an avocational local historian. In other words, I do this. This doesn't pay the rent. It brings in some money, but brings in a lot of personal satisfaction, and and the joy of being able to contribute to our knowledge and appreciation of the Bronx River. Now, I started out, I'm a lifelong Bronxite. I should introduce myself. Lifetime New Yorker, lifetime Bronxite. I've been fascinated by the history of New York City all my life. And I've always been a very avid, what you call an urban explorer. I'm one of these guys that, walks down streets just because they're there, and you wonder what kind of buildings you might find. And what fascinates me is finding a lot of history, big history in very small places. Now, my first book, it was actually the second one to be published, but my first book was the history of the Bowery in Manhattan. That if you're over the age of 40, you might recall as a very infamous kind of place, a horrible, Skid Row sort of place. If you're younger than 40, you're probably thinking of it as a very artsy, trendy place to go on an evening. But I got interested in it. This was back in the early 1990s. I started to look into it and wonder, like what's the story here? How did this place come to be? And I found this wealth of stories, a lot of it very, I'll say, very edgy history. Not all of it very pleasant, but all of it interesting. And it wound up becoming a book. Now, and I started at the Bronx River Alliance. There I am in the old offices in Araniquah, and all these, file cabinets full of papers and stuff. And so, of course, my little inner historian gets very tickled at the sight of all this paper. Now, this wasn't my job. My job was to write grants and reports and things like that. But I'm thinking, oh, gee whiz, the Bronx River, this place must have a history too. And I started thinking, well, wouldn't it be nice I could research, maybe write like a little 24-page brochure and we could hand it out to people at events or things like that. Well, the project blossomed, and I was totally unexpecting that to find the wealth of both history and folklore along the Bronx River, which, remember, is only 23 miles long. This is not the Mississippi we're talking about. But even in those 23 miles, I found enough material to fill a book and then some. And also to fuel, I've done perhaps 60 or 70 of these Bronx River rambles along various parts of the river, talking about the history and the ecology and again the folklore. If I got any crazy stories to pass on. Part of me is a folklorist and main part's an historian. But it's interesting work. Now, if you're doing this, one thing I would say to any aspiring writer is that writing is not a get rich quick scheme by any means. If you really want to make money, you should break into genre fiction, like romance or thrillers, things like that. And that's not easy to do. If you're John Grisham or somebody of that ilk, Stephen King especially, sure, you could make $1 million, but most people are not going to make big gobs of money by writing, and particularly not by writing local history. You write it because it's worth doing, you enjoy doing it, and you want to see it done. And so with that caution, I sat down to research the river's history and finding more and more and more stories. And again, a lot of this is backed up with a growing familiarity with the river, paddling it, walking it, hanging out with the Bronx River Alliance and its various events, getting to know some of the internal history of the Bronx River Alliance as well, and all the history of the restoration efforts that have gone on to turning the river around from something quite dramatically different from what I knew when I was a kid. I grew up literally on the banks of the Bronx River, and it was not the sort of place we know today. I would never have dreamed 50 years ago of anybody, let alone myself, putting a canoe in the river and paddling its length. So all that being said, you do it because it's worth doing. It does take a bit of discipline. It takes a lot of application. It takes a lot of marshaling of material, and then putting it together. I remarked to somebody when I was in the process of writing is that this was kind of like a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. Because I had notes all over the place and all kinds of things, and then to try to fit them together into a coherent narrative. It's a challenge, but it's something worth doing if you want to put the time and work into it. So that being said, now maybe I should mention my real job. I'm a grant writer, and just to do this very quickly, I'm currently working for a human services agency down in Manhattan. But I had my start in this business at the Bronx River Alliance in 2006. Now, I've been working in not-for-profits on a volunteer basis since beginning of the 1980s. I'd been around the block a few times, not drawing a salary, but wearing many hats, for a small cultural organization. And I thought this was an opportunity to go professional, to do this, and draw a salary and do this for a living, but mainly to combine these various interests, this desire to, improve the world, not sound too idealistic, but to make some real contribution, to the life of the planet, and especially make a contribution to your own local uh, town and borough that I live in. And at the same time, engaging my skills as a writer and putting it in the service of the not-for-profit and then drawing a salary for it. So that's what I've been doing, and I've been doing it continuously since 2006. I worked for the Hudson River Museum after I left the Bronx River Alliance, and now I'm still doing the same thing down on Wall Street. Actually, is where the headquarters is. So as soon as I got the job, I called up my mom. Says, hey, here you could tell everybody got a son working on Wall Street. She could also tell everybody she's got a son working on the waterfront because that's where we're at. We're literally on South Street, within view of the South Street Seaport. But anyway, I don't know what else I could tell you. It's Flash me some questions.
How many years have you been working in this role?
Well, continuously since 2006. So that would be, oh, wow, 15 years now? Scary. Okay, so time flies, and especially when you're having fun.
Exactly. What do you consider the most rewarding part of your career to be?
The grant writing career, it's bringing in significant grants, particularly from someplace that nobody said, well, we don't have a chance. This isn't going to fly. It isn't going to happen. We're bringing in a substantial amount of money that enables a worthwhile program to proceed, whatever the program may be it, canoeing, be it environmental education, or being any of the human services programs my current job has.
Hold
That
on a
is
minute.
very satisfying.
I just wanted to ask the kids, do you guys know what grants are?
Oh, I should define that.
No,
No.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, let me. I'm sorry. I should explain this first off. Okay, you're working for a not-for-profit agency such as the Bronx River Alliance. They're not pumping oil out of wells or have like a big income. Main income is going to foundations or sometimes individual donors who are in a position to give away money to support not-for-profit programs. Now, okay, that sounds very easy so far, but it's not. It's usually a very involved process involved with writing a proposal. You have to send them a proposal, tell them what it is we're asking money for. We would really, really like $20,000 to support this program, say, canoeing program or environmental education. And this will benefit X number of young people, and it will inform their education and will improve this. And you can list all the benefits that will accrue if this program is funded and can operate. And then the fun part is, and this this is where I really, really had a good time at the Alliance, was after a year, they almost invariably want a report back. Okay, did you have the program? How many people did you really bring in? How much work was actually done? What were the benefits, the tangible benefits? Now, it's still a bit of a joke around the Alliance, and I still joke about it, is counting the tires. I'm known as the tire man because some of our funders, they want to know like really, really specific information about what the conservation crew was doing. And I would have to tell them in the last year, they took X number of old tires out of the river. And I kept a running total too, and it's very impressive after a while. But I could say, well, we lifted, 1,531 tires out of the river, 14 old cars, 3 motorcycles, and well, some things they found on the river just did not get listed, but I'll stick to that. Or conversely, how many trees were planted, native trees, how many shrubs, how many square feet of riverbank was abated for knotweed and invasives, all that sort of thing. I needed real
Do they know what
statistics.
guys, do you know what abated is?
Oh, being removed, basically, sort of like locally exterminated.
All right.
Yeah, because
Well, for
we've
a
got a
good
lot of.
reason. We've talked about the invasive species, right? And they're making room for natives. Yes. Okay, good.
Yeah, we've got a lot of them along the river, and it's a perpetual task, as anybody on the conservation crew can tell you. But nevertheless, that's a big part of it. So I need to gather real information, accurate information, and one thing you've got to deal with in this business is deadlines. Very often, there is a deadline for submitting for the coming year. The proposal has to be in by May 14th, 2021. And if you don't make it, well, that's too bad. Wait till next year. But tell that to your boss. Oh, I forgot the deadline. We didn't can't get the grant till a year from now, right? And also for the reports, we must have this report in hand by September 30th, 2021. So you've got to learn to live with deadlines. You've got to learn to pace your work. You got to learn to plan your work out. And you're going to need a lot of patience because you're going to have to, you're not the one who's creating all this activity. You've got to get the information from other people, the program officers and the participants. And you've got to, sometimes you got to keep at them like, I need a count of tires. Tell me how many tires you lifted last month, that sort of thing. So it's it has its satisfactions, but like I say, I do this 9 to 5, and then I come home, and then I can really do the fulfilling work of researching and writing local history.
Well, that's a perfect segue into the next question, which is, what is the most rewarding part of your career?
Well, the paid career, the most rewarding part is knowing that you have made possible some of these very worthy programs that whatever agency you're working for is doing, be it human services, being environmental, or whatnot. I suppose you would not want to get into a situation where you totally disagree with the mission and values of the organization, because then you're not going to get much satisfaction. But that hasn't happened to me. It isn't likely to happen because there's a lot of worthy organizations out there, and whatever it is they're doing, it's usually something very much worth doing. And if you can have a part in this, even if you can't be, in charge of the program or storming the barricade yourself, you can still nevertheless you be the person who helps make this happen, even from a little cubicle in the back of the office. So it's very satisfying. In writing, the big satisfaction is well, I'll tell you, the big writing a book is only half the job. The other half of the job is bringing it to publication. And in a lot of ways, that's the more difficult part of the task. But persist, work with the editors, work with the publishing company. Keep your patience, be of good cheer, do what you have to do. And then finally, you're going to see that thing in print between a pair of covers and landing on your desk. And yes, that is a very, very satisfying moment. And then particularly when you get feedback from people, oh, I read your book. It's wonderful. Oh, this is cool. Could you sign a copy? That's knowing that you've reached people and you've told people that, say in this example, what a wonderful, interesting place the Bronx River is. And they never knew it before, never guessed it before. Yeah, that's a great, great feeling. It's worth all the work, believe me.
Amazing. Can you describe a typical day of work in your job?
Okay, a typical day for me, working in the office 9 to 5. I come in and the first thing I do is I keep a calendar of upcoming tasks and particularly upcoming deadlines. And I look at this every morning, whether I think I know it or not. I bring it up and I look at it and here's the deadline, 14th of May. This thing's got to be in, and like, oh, I've hardly started it. So you get these little moments of panic sometimes. But you sit down, you plan your work, what needs doing immediately, who I got to call, who I got to talk to, what I've got to write, and you plan your day out that way, and basically go to it. You do what needs doing. And of course, there'll be a lot of meetings, a lot of phone calls, emails, and perpetual emails. But again, you persist. Eventually, you'll get to 5 o'clock, and hopefully by that point, you could say, "Well, I got something accomplished today," and you can go home with a good conscience.
How much time do you get to spend outside when working in a role like yours?
Okay, working as a grant writer, really zero, because I'm not an active participant in any of the programs I write about. Basically, I'm running the whole show from a cubicle in the back of the office. Good news is where I was in the Alliance, we had all the Bronx River. You do get a lunch hour, so you can get out. And where I am right now, as I mentioned before, we're right up against the South Street Seaport and the East River Esplanade. So basically, I traded one river, the Bronx River, in for another one, the East River, and I can enjoy them both. And the East River's got a history to it too, but I won't get into that. So I do get out a little bit, but it's on my own dime. It's not part of the job.
Did you know that you wanted to do this job when you were growing up?
Honestly, no. I don't think I ever imagined such a thing. I think when I was growing up, I was going to be an astronaut or a general or something else. I never imagined. But though I do think in some way or another I had always wanted to be a writer because I grew up. My mom was a copy editor and a journalist by profession, and she's written a few books of her own as well. So this was kind of part of the background. It's sort of like a normal thing to do. You grow up, you write a book or two, or you contribute to a newspaper, or basically you write, turn stuff out. So I think on some level, I wanted to be a writer. Perhaps a famous literary person like Edgar Allan Poe. But life plays its tricks. Sometimes things don't always turn out quite the way you imagined when you were 6 years old, but they do turn out in the end.
Absolutely. Can you live and work anywhere in the world with a career like this, or does this job have location limitations?
Uh, I think if you're talking anywhere in the world, grant writing, grant management does have a certain limitation. Now, it's great here in the United States because we've got literally thousands of foundations, and a lot of environmental and human services work is handled by private charities, such as the Bronx River Alliance. And this isn't quite the case if you go to Europe, say like you go to England or Britain. A lot of things are handled by the government. There is not the infrastructure of private foundations that we have in the United States. In Ireland, even less so. There's virtually it's starting to turn around, but it's nothing like the United States. So if I wanted to be a grant writer and say I wanted to move to Dublin, Ireland, I don't think I'd work out very well. It varies from country to country, but the United States, because of our history of privatization, we're a very rich field for this kind of work.
If you had an internship, where did you intern?
Well, you could probably say my internship was the Bronx River Alliance because I came in 2006. I had no experience in grant writing, and of course I was very open about this too. I had no background in the natural sciences either. And of course, now I'm talking about aspects of river ecology, like I invented them myself. But as I came in the door, no, I was trained in history and knew practically nothing about helicoidal flow or you know uh, fluvial dynamics or anything like that. All the wonderful science that goes into shaping a river and populating its ecology. So yeah, I had a lot of learning to do, and the Alliance was a great learning experience. And like I say, now I take people along the river and I, act like I know what I'm talking about.
Awesome. What level of education do you need for the job that you do?
Okay, for grant writing, I would say almost certainly, bottom line would be a bachelor's degree in college. Now, having had that, once you get in the job, once you got a foot in the job, there's a lot of professional education you'll still need to undertake. There are advanced degrees in the subject, though I've not tried to pursue one. And there's various kinds of certification, which may or may not be necessary where you are. But nevertheless, just learning the nuts and bolts and the procedures that go into this. There's a lot of live courses you can take. Now, when I was at the Alliance, what I did, I decided I wanted to do this for real and really get into it. So New York University, it's adult education program, the SCPU, they call it, offered a number of classes that would lead to a certificate in grant management, and that's what I eventually pursued and attained. Took a bit of money, and it took a lot of late evenings, going down to Washington Square to attend classes, but it was worth it, because this is where you really learned all the stuff you didn't learn in college. That's directly relevant to the task.
That is a perfect segue to the next question, which is, what classes or courses would you recommend to prepare for this kind of career?
Okay, that being said, I would really strongly recommend New York University. Now, understand that their prices, this is not a cheap place to go to. It's going to cost you a bit of money, but having said that, you are going to get your money's worth, because these adult education courses, SCPU division, works by the instructors are people from the field. They're real life people with real life jobs in the field, and they kind of come and tell you the war stories, but they've got, a lot of accumulated experience, not just talking about it as as an abstract subject, but it's something for real that they've just come from their own office and have been doing as well. And I've had some really amazing people. So it's worth spending the money if you can, borrow it or get hold of it somehow. It's, like I said, it's not cheap, but it is, you do get good value at New York University.
Yeah, there's always scholarships.
That too, yeah.
Yeah. If you ever, when you're thinking about college, always look into scholarships. I pieced together a whole bunch of scholarships, and that's how I paid for school.
Yeah. There's
So
various agencies, such as the Bronx Center for Nonprofits, that also offer brief courses as well. So if you're just getting your feet wet, you could probably start out there. Bronx Center for Nonprofits, I could recommend. They're very good people, very sincere, and they're located down in Hostos, so it's not quite the commute you would have to Washington Square. But if you really want to get a certification and really, get into it, NYU would probably be the way to go.
what were your favorite classes in school?
Oh, in school, history. I'm sorry, I've always been a geek. I've been a history geek since before I could learn to read. So, and school, it was when I got into history. That was always my favorite part of it. Anything but math and arithmetic. I'm just pretty awful at anything involving numbers.
And yet now with your grants, you write all about numbers all the time. Look at that.
I had I had to learn quite a few things about budgeting, drawing up a budget, balancing a budget.
Yeah.
Numbers work.
Yep, exactly.
It's not astrocalculus, but still, it's something you do need to. The numbers do need to add up, and they need to make sense before you send this as a request to somebody.
And then the last question that we have prepared, but if the students have any others, please feel free to throw them in the chat, is, does your job change often? And if so, how do you adapt to the changes?
Well, the job itself doesn't change. It's been fairly consistent. You might get some more responsibility from time to time. But what does change, and this is one of the more troublesome aspects of the job, is that very often the rules will change on you, like with a particular funder. That you think you're going along, and all of a sudden they want to make things a lot more complicated beginning this year. And woe betide you if you haven't caught up with it or not aware of it. That, it used to be you could send a nice letter, as a request. Oh no, now they want, it's a online third-party online submission platform. And it seems everyone is different, and everyone you've got to learn a whole new set of procedures and how to how to manage and get this submitted. So you got to, and of course, and from time to time, the law changes too. Things, various legal aspects of the job. But there's plenty of publications and things that'll keep you abreast of new developments in the funding field.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Does anybody have any additional questions for Stephen about his paid job or his passion job?
Yeah, especially with the passion job.
Can you give us any info, like anything I may not know about the history of the Bowery?
Yeah. Oh, the Bowery.
Okay.
Oh, first of all, let me tell the kids. Well, you tell the kids, where is the Bowery? Because they may not know.
Yeah, it's sort of a forgotten part of Manhattan. But if you go down, like, where Union Square is on East 14th Street, it starts there, it proceeds south from Union Square, and it's kind of like a curvy thing. And it ends up in Chinatown, right in the heart of Chinatown in Chatham Square. It's only a mile and a quarter long from end to end, but there's a lot of history wrapped up in it. And some nice museums, and there's restaurants and cafes now. It's totally unlike what it was 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I tell you, don't walk there, but now it's things are different. What was I going to say? Oh, I forgot. If you want to know anything about the mechanics of research or writing, I could give you some pointers there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. We
You're welcome.
appreciate your sharing with us today.
Thank you.
And then I'd like to take a little time to get to know Imelda a little bit better. So I would like to ask you the same questions as well. So first off, I don't think Stephen knows your job, so I think the others do, but just introduce yourself, please, and a little bit about the work that you do.
So I am Inelda. The kids know me as Inelda. My last name is Juarbe. They may not know that. And I'm the dean at the school. What they don't know is that I'm also a teacher. They're like, "You're not a teacher," So I am licensed in ESL, in special education, English, and I also have a bilingual extension. So, you see, Juan is like, I didn't know that. So did I say special education as well? Yeah, and special education. Um, I was born in Harlem. I grew up in Harlem. Somewhere in the early 70s, late 70s, my parents decided to go back to Puerto Rico. So I lived in Puerto Rico for like 8 years, but then we came back when the Bronx was burning and Manhattan was burning. Well, at least where I lived. And I wound up going to Hunter College. I graduated from Manhattan Center for Science and Math. I went to Hunter College, and then I wanted to get away from the city because the city was just burning. It was the time of the crack epidemic, and it just wasn't good. So I went away to Cobleskill, and then from Cobleskill, I went to Newport. And my mother, it's because you guys are gonna have a story, and it may or may not be, but my mother then had cancer, and I wound up having to come back to the city, and so I started working in the city and taking care of my mother. And so I finished my education at City College, and I got my bachelor's there, and then I got my master's there as well. And I went back to, during the time, in order to make money, I was working at a daycare. Um, and that's how I got introduced to education. I used to work, I was for SYEP. I was I used to go from site to site to site, um, meeting with the kids, talking to the kids, and collecting timesheets so that they could get paid and all of that. And one of the schools, one of the daycares needed a teacher, and so I had enough of an education that they would hire me there. And once I got my bachelor's, I went to the high school. I went back to the high school where I graduated from, and I stayed there a whole bunch of years until I came here to the Bronx. And I lived over there in Harlem. I want to say I moved like maybe 10 years ago because gentrification started and the landlord didn't want to fix up the apartment. He wanted everybody to leave. So I was one of the last people in that building, and we were moved out. Mhm. And so here I am in the Bronx. And I've been at Fannie Lou, I want to say 8 years now. Um, and I love Fannie Lou. Anything else?
Yes. What is the most rewarding part of your career?
Oh, dealing with the kids. I love talking to the kids. I know that they, oh, Juan. I know that they think I hate them, but I don't. Um, because I'm very rah-rah. It's like, what are you doing? And where is it? But I really like talking to the kids. I enjoy spending time with them. I believe they keep me young.
I have a theory that the more you learn, well, this part isn't a theory. When you learn something, they say you get a wrinkle in your brain. So I say that if you continue to learn something, then the wrinkles are in your brain and not on your face.
Nice.
That's my working theory. Can you describe a typical day of work in your job, please?
um, I get anywhere from 30 to 40 thousand steps a day. So I'm usually running around because no, I don't take the elevator. Um, I look, Huang is saying this is about to get funny. I run after the kids. Sometimes I drag them down the hall. Um, Sometimes, stopping fights and then doing mediations and trying to bring Jadi's laughing and trying to get everybody to get along when conflicts arise. And I also help the teachers out if they need to run out to the bathroom. I'll run in. Hmm. And also all the paperwork.
How much time do you get to spend outside when working in a role like this?
Not much at all.
Clearly not enough.
Not
Let's work
enough.
to change that.
In the summertime, I work with rocking the boat with the kids. And that's phenomenal because we get out on the Bronx River. We do a lot of walking. And I love the summer at Fannie Lou because we get down to it in the Bronx.
Did you know that you wanted to do this job growing up?
No, no. Okay, so I wanted to be an electrician, and I got into local 3, and my mother told me that that wasn't a job for a woman. So I decided I was going to join the Marines, and my mother ran the Marines out of the apartment, like ran them out. And and so She told me that's no job for a woman. And so I went to college. And even while I was in college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. It sort of, it was when I was working with SYEP that I got into working with the kids. And I was like, you know what? I really like. And then my mother was like, that's woman job.
Oh, I love it. I love mom advice.
Mhm.
Mom advice is the best advice. You might not know it now, but mom advice turns out to always be really good advice. Did you, no, I already did that. Can you live and work anywhere in the world with a career like this, or does this job have location limitations?
Wherever there's kids, I could live and work.
If you had an internship, where did you intern?
You know what? I did have an internship when I was at Skill. I have forgotten about this. I worked they had us working at it was like a daycare for a little bit. I didn't much like it. You know, that's what I didn't think I would be an educator. Like I didn't much like it. Um, but yeah, I did internship.
What level of education do you need for your job?
A master's degree is required. So you have to have, your bachelor's, which is the 4 year, and then you have to have an additional 2 year, which is the master's. You could get more and get paid more if you wanted to. And the DOE sometimes pays, the Department of Education.
What classes or courses would you recommend that they take to prepare for this kind of career?
In college?
I guess, however you want to interpret that question.
I mean, because when we get back, right, if you think you want to go into education, when we get back, when we do the community outreach, right? Um, Daddy just said 6 years to become a teacher? Yes, Daddy, 6 years. You know that we have the different sites. We have the daycare sites, and then we also have the sites in the elementary school. Oh, and we also have in the special school. If you wanted to do those, like I could assign you to one of those. That's first. Second, it's difficult because I didn't really take any education classes until my master's. That's where I focused on education.
What's your bachelor's in?
English.
Oh.
English.
So what were your favorite classes in school?
English.
English.
Literature.
Interesting. Does your job change often? And if so, how do you adapt to the changes?
Change right now. We're in a pandemic, right? No, I mean, it changes every day because people come in a different mood every day, right? So I have to gauge how such and such is feeling, and such and such just came in a little, you know. So every day is a different of what's happening, right? And every day we sit down and say, okay, this happened yesterday, this happened yesterday. We have to address that. So those things are a constant change. And now that we're in a pandemic, right? I'm at one exit, Jackson and Louis are at another exit, and then there's another exit downstairs where the kids come in and out, and we're all isolated, and it's terrible because they come to school, I don't see them ever. I'll see Catalina and I'll be like, Catalina, she'll be like, don't talk to me, I emailed you and you didn't respond. But I don't, I'm not getting to see everybody all the time, which is a little sad.
Does anybody have any questions? Anything that you or don't know, would like to know? Stephen or Anela, do you have questions for each other?
Oh, no, but I'm impressed that you're at Fannie Lou Hamer.
Mhm.
Martin DeCat or other Bronx River story, and you're probably aware, used to
Mhm.
be a teacher there too. Very interesting fellow. So I got through him, I acquired a tremendous respect for Fannie Lou Hamer. I pointed out to people if I'm doing a walk in that neighborhood.
I mean, our entire science program is geared to the Bronx River, which is
Yeah,
phenomenal, phenomenal.
it is. It's quite a curriculum.
And we're so excited that now there's a way for you to get across the Sheridan to us, and that now we have River House that we are able to be down there at the river. So
You know,
yeah, so
at first I was a little worried that this was happening because of the new buildings that were being built. And I was afraid that gentrification is starting to happen there too. And so at first I was like, grr, what's happening? Um, I mean, we'll see.
yeah,
Jasmine and Catalina, this is your responsibility to keep that neighborhood.
yep, yep. Come out with us, come volunteer with us, help us pull weeds, maintain the green infrastructure, rain gardens in the park, and there's going to be opportunities for litter pickups and all sorts of stuff all summer long. So there's plenty of activist opportunities that we can do this summer.
Mm.
Great. We will be beginning my favorite month next month. We're going to be talking about sustainability. Stephen was talking about how he's a nerd for history. I am a nerd for sustainability. And my goal with myself through this whole pandemic is, how can I reduce the amount of waste that I produce as much as possible? And so that's what we're going to start talking about. You do have assignments. Let me follow up with them. I will email you all through EELS. Are you all getting, through Classroom. Are you all getting the messages when I send them through Classroom?
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
No? Who said no?
Me. I don't get nothing.
Who's me?
Jadi,
Jody. Okay.
Jadi, but do you have the classroom open?
For what?
No.
For this? No.
Yeah, for this.
Okay.
So if you go in, because what I did was, for this, I opened it on my phone because I don't have I don't have Fannie Lou classes on my phone. I have it on my computer. Do you have your classes, your Google classes on your phone?
Yeah.
Then he's not going to be able to open it.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Then I will send you all an email, not through Classroom, with an update on assignments. And we have an announcement. We have a new educator that we just hired, and she will be starting on the 18th. So you will get a chance to meet her after that. So yes, so really excited. Thank you all. Have a good week, and I'll see you next week for Sustainability Month.
Bye,
Looking forward to it.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.